welcome to a very special Halloween edition of the A-Game. I'm Hunter Boston, a.k.a. Austin Riley.
I'm Judson Mabe.
I'm Ryan Hendricks, the WSU Bandit.
The Eagles bounced back this week after their first loss of the season, while the 49ers get their second consecutive loss. Are they a trick or a treat?
I think they're a trick because I think both of these teams end up being good this year. I think both of them are going to be solid. I think you have a few hiccups in the road there. Sometimes you get confused at the start of the year and you mess up what you're trying to do. But both of these teams have so much talent that they're going to be fine. They can get a few losses here and there, but at the end of the year they'll still be something like 12-4, so they'll go be okay.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the Eagles are a treat as well. Jalen Hurts has been off to a shaky start this season with a 9-8 touchdown to interception ratio. But if he can get things more safe on the offensive side, they're definitely set with the addition of Kevin Byard from the Tennessee Titans. This defense, they've played great the entire year despite their loss to the Jets, but that was an ugly game on both sides.
I think both of these teams losing is definitely a trick. This is not what both of these teams are going to look like for the rest of this season. Only one team has went undefeated all time in NFL history, and especially hard right now with the 17-game season. The Eagles have already bounced back. Huge win against the Dolphins. They looked dominant against one of the best offenses we have ever seen in NFL history. They literally broke a record for yards through the first couple games of the season, and they got 17 points against this Eagles team. Complete domination. Then the 49ers, I just don't think this 49ers team, I think they're going through a lot right now with some injuries. Brock Purdy's having, little growing pains. He's only a sophomore quarterback. But I think both of these teams are going to get back to where they need to be for sure. They're not that bad. They're still top two teams in the NFC, in my opinion.
Completely agreed. The Detroit Lions got off to a red-hot start this season before suffering a blowout loss to the Ravens on Sunday. Will this team stay strong, or did they get off to a lucky start?
I think they got off to a lucky start, so that makes them a trick in my. I think the Lions have come back down to earth to start this year. I think at the start of the year, they got a fluke win over the Chiefs. That was a few drop passes away there. The Chiefs are going to win that game. And then they beat up on some bad teams. They beat up on the Carolina Panthers. They beat up on the Atlanta Falcons, the Tampa Bay Bucks. And we saw this week when they played the Ravens, when they play a legit team, they're not too hot. So I think the Lions are still going to make the playoffs, but they're not at the top of the NFC level like we thought.
I think quite the opposite, actually. Since Detroit's Week 1 game against the Chiefs, their toughest opponent came last week against the Ravens. And it was a tough task going into M&T Bank Stadium, but an even tougher one chasing Lamar Jackson around for 4 quarters. On average, though, the Lions score more points per game than the league average, and Jared Goff is establishing himself as a top 10 QB. As David Montgomery comes back and Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs get settled into this offense, I think the Lions are definitely going to be a threat.
This Lions big start is definitely a treat in my eyes, which shouldn't be a big surprise. I'm a Lions believer. I'm a Dan Campbell believer. They have guys on both sides of the ball. Aiden Hutchinson is a dog on defense. Sammy Laporta is one of the best rookies that I think is in the NFL. Jared Goff is playing like a first-round pick, one of the first top picks in the draft, like he did back in L.A. And I think this Lions start is who they are. Now, they ran into one of the best teams in the NFL in the Ravens. Lamar Jackson putting up MVP-like numbers like he did back in 2019. I think they really just ran into a buzzsaw of a team that in the Ravens that's really clicking right now in the season. The Lions will be just fine, in my opinion. Now, heading to the NBA, the Milwaukee Bucks made a big move this offseason by acquiring Damian Lillard. Is this team bound for greatness, or is this a trick?
I think this is a treat, and they are bound for it. I'm a huge believer in this team heading in. I think Giannis and Dame are going to make one of the best duos in the NBA, and they got to keep Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez, two guys who are definitely very good at playing ball. So I think each year we see the Bucks be at the top of the East, and I think we're going to see that once again. They may even make it further on this year like we saw a few years ago when they won the title.
Yeah, I think the Bucks are a treat, but it may get tricky. Obviously, the addition of Damian Lillard paired with Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be must-watch TV. I think it does come down to the age of the rest of the rotation and as well as their bench. So it could get tricky in the Eastern Conference Finals going into the NBA Finals.
These Milwaukee Bucks are definitely a treat. They get a lot better with Damian Lillard. They do have to get rid of one of the best defending guards in the league in Drew Holiday for Damian Lillard, who is not the best defensively, but he is so much better offensively that it covers everything else up. Now, the Celtics are going to have something to say about the Bucks' run in the East, but I think this team is definitely one to beat in the East, and it's going to be vying for that NBA championship.
And moving on to baseball, at the time of this filming, the Philadelphia Phillies are heading into Game 7 against the Arizona Diamondbacks. With an impressive run this season so far regardless, is this team here to stay, or will the Phillies fall once again?
I think they're here to stay, making them a treat once again. And they proved to me that they could just put together these deep postseason runs. There's 2 years in a row they've done this, and they're starting to prove to me that as long as you make the dance, the regular season doesn't matter too much. We saw the Braves get over 100 wins. All these teams getting these big amounts of wins during the regular season didn't matter come playoff time. So I think the Phillies have cracked a code of what to do come postseason.
Yeah, the Phillies are a treat for me as well. Ranger Suarez will be on the bump tonight for Game 7, a .64 ERA and 1 earned run over 3 appearances this postseason. They have plenty of power as Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper have hit 11 home runs each in the past 2 postseasons. They definitely have it offensively and defensively. I see this team as a treat.
As much as it pains me to say this while wearing this jersey and being Austin Riley, this Phillies team is a treat. You can't say otherwise. They beat the Braves, quite literally the best team in Major League Baseball through the regular season. Zach Wheeler is the best pitcher in the postseason, in my opinion. Bryce Harper is a dog. They have guys all over that lineup that can just mash the baseball. Nick Castellanos, I'm going to be seeing that guy in my sleep as a Braves fan for sure. But this team is definitely a treat. But unfortunately for them, they've ran into another treat, in my opinion, in the Arizona Diamondbacks. So we'll see what happens tonight on the day of this filming to see if the Phillies can stay alive. Stay right where you are. When we come back, we'll hear from Lucas and Nick about famous sports curses.
Let's go!
To a place where you can grow.
A place to be heard.
And take a closer look.
A place where you can crush it.
And push yourself.
A place to find your voice.
This place rocks. And rolls.
A place where you can get out.
Wow! A place you'll never forget.
So where is this place? Let me show you.
The Madden curse has taken multiple forms over the years, ranging from injuries to players suddenly falling off to other cover athletes straight up underperforming. The curse was most prevalent in the 2000s.
The original victim of the Madden curse was in 2000, as legendary running back Barry Sanders graced the cover of Madden and then abruptly retired in July of 1999, meaning he never set foot on the field after landing on the Madden cover.
His departure was so shocking that EA used the Green Bay Packers' Dorsey Levens for their cover for the alternative European versions of the game. The curse was consistent up to 2012 when Calvin Johnson reset the Madden curse after having the best receiving season ever.
That was until Antonio Brown, one of the league's best wide receivers, became the Madden cover athlete in 2019 after posting a career high in touchdowns at 15. After that season, Antonio Brown tanked his career with off-the-field issues. Brown would play just 16 games over the course of the next 3 seasons, playing for 3 different teams. The current Madden cover athlete is Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen.
The Bills are currently performing well below expectations at 4-3 after taking a loss to the New England Patriots. Allen needs a strong second half of the year to avoid the curse. So, Lucas, what are a couple of other Madden curses that you have thought about or are worth mentioning that we didn't talk about?
Yeah, looking at quarterbacks, I think of Vikings quarterback Dante Culpepper in the early 2000s. I mean, he's a guy, I believe he threw 33 touchdowns in the year he graced the Madden cover. His team goes 12-4, and then he follows it up with 13 touchdown, 14 interception ratio. He had 16 fumbles in that season, and I believe that Viking team went 5-7 when he was the starter. Not the kind of play you want after, making a Madden cover.
All right, just real quick, also Sean Alexander, someone people don't really know about a lot, but he was MVP level player. Second he goes on Madden, he immediately falls off.
That's the Madden curse for you. But another curse you want to look at is the Drake curse. As Drake has been an undeniable star these past couple of years, becoming one of the most successful rappers in the world. But that same success hasn't leaked over to his sports fandom. Whether it's professional or collegiate, team sport or individual, Drake has cursed just about any athlete he's crossed paths with.
One big example was Johnny Manziel. Just before the 2014 NFL Draft, he gave him a shout-out in his song, Draft Day. He promptly fell down the draft board to the Cleveland Browns 22nd overall, and after 2 years, he was out of the NFL.
Another great example is tennis star Serena Williams. It started back in August 2015 when a blurry image surfaced of Drake and Serena getting real cozy at a party. At that time, Serena was in the midst of a record-breaking season with her sights set on the tennis Grand Slam.
With 3 major wins already under her belt, Serena Williams was looking to get her 4th at the US Open. With Drake himself in attendance, the scene was set and the curse didn't disappoint, with Serena Williams losing early in the tournament with one of the most stunning upsets in tennis history.
But if you still doubt the Drake curse, look no further than the effect it's had on your Mountaineers. Ever since Drake posted a picture in a vintage App State hoodie, the football team has gone 5-7. Thanks, Drake. So, Nick, what are some other Drake curses that come to mind?
Well, there's one recently that is worth mentioning. Drake has put his support behind the Georgia Bulldogs. And even though Georgia is still undefeated, they're still one of the top teams in the nation. Since that time, Brock Bowers got injured, and he was knocked out the entire year. He's going to be knocked out the whole year. So that's one right there.
Yeah. Now, I look at, if you want to go back even further, Alabama, he backs them. They lose a historical game to Clemson, 44-16.
All right, moving on. Lastly, we have a spooky trend among NFL teams. Whenever a team goes to the Super Bowl, no matter if they win or lose, at least one of the 2 teams, if not both, struggle the very next year.
It can range from anything from an injury bug, like the 2020 San Francisco 49ers, teams inexplicably struggling like the 2019 Rams, or a massive curse that lasts for several years.
The Denver Broncos and the Carolina Panthers are still struggling after Super Bowl 50. Both teams have one playoff appearance between them since the big game, and have never come close to making another Super Bowl.
Oddly enough, both the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles are avoiding the curse so far. Both teams have combined to be 12-2 so far this season and are well on their way to make the playoffs as championship contenders.
There's still a lot of time left in this season. Both the Chiefs and the Eagles seem to be in a good position, but history tells us that something will happen to at least one of these teams as they look to try to make it back to the Super Bowl. So Lucas, name a couple of other teams that have had some struggles since they made it or won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, just for me, the first team that comes to mind when you think of Super Bowl hangovers is the 2015 Philadelphia Eagles. They go 15-1 and they miraculously win the Super Bowl with Nick Foles beating Tom Brady in that Super Bowl. And then the next year they go 9-7 with Carson Wentz, losing the second round. But like we talked about before, at least they made the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple other teams too. I mean, we go back to the greatest show on turf, Los Angeles Rams. Right after they lost that Super Bowl, it felt like that potential dynasty just ended right there. And also Seattle, that was a team that could have had a dynasty, but then after they throw a pick at the end of that Super Bowl, it just feels like that team just immediately fell off like the very next year.
It's crazy how one play can decide an entire team's future. But stay where you are. When we return, we will hear from Noah about great games played on Halloween.
Welcome back to this spooky edition of the A-Game. I'm T'Challa, a.k.a. Black Panther, a.k.a. Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace, a.k.a. Noah Cornelius. Look, you know what really makes for a good Halloween? Sports. And when games are held on the day where ghouls come out to play, you may see bats or even a black cat checking into the game. These are my top 3 picks for the best Halloween sports moments. Let's get this list started off with some football. And what team was scarier in their heyday than the New England Patriots? We're talking 20 years of domination, even though they're pretty trash now. But in 2004, while on an incredible 21-game winning streak, the Patriots marched into the blue-collar city of Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Historically, the Steelers have also been scary in their own right, thanks to their steel curtain defense in the 70s and their overall representation of the aforementioned blue-collar working city, that is Pittsburgh. But they couldn't lay a finger on the Patriots, and to be fair, no one could. Until Halloween night 2004, when a rookie, Ben Roethlisberger that is, must have put a hex on Brady because the Steelers exploded out of the gate, scoring 21 points in the first quarter off of 2 Plaxico Burress touchdowns. Now that's a name for you. The Steelers never let off the gas, resulting in a 34-20 win for the boys in black and yellow. Not us, but the Steelers. But while the Steelers won the battle, the Patriots won the war by getting revenge on this very same team in the 2004 AFC Championship en route to a Super Bowl, I don't know Roman numerals, XXIX victory. I know that last one is 9, but in all seriousness, how is that for terrifying? Now it's time to shift some gears, literally. Come on now, did y'all really expect me not to talk about NASCAR? All right, for real though, for real. 2010, Talladega Superspeedway. For decades, it's been the scariest, the meanest, and the most unforgiving track in NASCAR history. And after a long Amp Energy Juice 500, cars started finding partners for the dance floor, coupling 2 by 2 to find the extra ounce of speed that could propel them to victory. And among this group were teammates Kevin Harvick and Clint Bowyer. At the time, the hotshot duo raced for Richard Childress Racing, one of the all-time best teams at Talladega, thanks to their dominance and the dominance of Intimidator, the Intimidator, Dale Earnhardt Sr. in the 90s. With 2 laps to go, Harvick, in an ailing car, pulled up alongside Bowyer. And coming to the white flag, Harvick gained the advantage, but Bowyer wasn't giving up going into turn 1. But neither of them got the chance to race to the checkered flag because fellow driver AJ Allmendinger went airborne, slamming into the wall before coming to a stop on the front stretch. Scary indeed. AJ was okay, but Bowyer and Harvick had to wait anxiously for NASCAR to determine who was in first place at the time of the wreck. But after a seemingly endless waiting period of replays, Bowyer was determined the winner. For Harvick, a trick. For Bowyer, a treat. Lastly, we wouldn't ask why a rose that grew from the concrete had damaged petals. On the contrary, we would all celebrate its tenacity. Shout out Tupac for that one. And on Halloween night in 2018, a rose came back from the dead and reminded everyone of its greatness. In a Western Conference matchup versus the Utah Jazz, injury-prone point guard Derrick Rose turned back the clock to 2011 to remind everyone of why he was once the MVP of the NBA. Rose dropped a career-high 50 points with 4 rebounds and 6 assists, leaving the Jazz and the league stunned as if they'd seen a ghost. And for Rose, the tears flowed like a river. Now, Derrick Rose hasn't come close to this performance ever since, but for one night, he gave everyone goosebumps. And that'll do it for my top 3 Halloween sports moments. But don't turn that dial, because up next, we will run down the mountain with Paula and Cody. Next on the A-Game.
Welcome back to the A-Game. I'm Paula McKenna, joined by Cody Bear. Cody, kick us off with this week's rundown.
App State football lost a big road game versus Old Dominion back on the 21st. A tough second quarter and a scoreless fourth quarter made the deficit too much for the Mountaineers, and they fell 28-21 in Virginia. What does this loss mean for App State football going forward in the season?
You know, I think a lot of people are kind of done with the waiting game and they want to see results now. I don't think that's necessarily firing any of the coaches. You know, you have some rough spots. It's getting to the point where it's too many rough spots. But Cody, what do you think?
It makes the road to a bowl a whole lot harder. With the win over Southern Miss, App State must still at least split their next 4 games versus Marshall, Georgia State, James Madison, and Georgia Southern. And those might be the 4 best teams in the Sun Belt. This is going to be a really, really tough stretch. Their back's against the wall. App State must play their best games in these 4 games, but their best prep comes when the odds are against them. So maybe they'll impress us.
That's true. They could pull it off. I mean, it might be hard, but Never say never. So Nebraska is making headlines again. Not only did they break the record for most spectators at a women's sporting event, but they just had a grueling match that went 5 sets. Nebraska beat Wisconsin, and the win kept Nebraska undefeated and ruined Wisconsin's undefeated run. Nebraska's win puts them into the #1 spot, and it dropped Wisconsin to #2. Before this last matchup, Nebraska hadn't beaten Wisconsin in 10 games. That losing streak is now broken. It has been quite a season for the Huskers. Cody, what is Nebraska doing right?
Yeah, so it all starts with a winning culture, especially at that college level. And Nebraska volleyball has never had a losing season in their program history. So the culture's there, and that's what you want, is you want the best recruits to want to go to your school. And that's exactly what they're having. Harper Murray, Lindsey Krause, Andy Jackson, and Merritt Beeson are all having triple-digit kills on the season.
Oh yeah, it definitely makes people want to go to their games, and it just gets the team hyped for the next game.
The Buffalo Bills' problems continue, as their last 3 games were a loss to the Jags, a narrow victory over the Giants, and now a loss to the now 2-5 Patriots. Josh Allen has had an interception in all of these 3 games. Paula, is it panic time in Buffalo?
I'm going to say yes. You know, it's getting to the point where you don't have time to make mistakes. We'll talk about it on and off for the rest of probably the season of the show. But Cody, what do you think?
I think it's panic time, absolutely. Let me present to you the 5-year rule. No team in NFL's history has started the same quarterback under the same head coach for 5 years and seen that duo win a Super Bowl. After 5 years, things seem to get stale, and someone either decides to move on or is forced to move on. This is year 6 for Sean McDermott and Josh Allen. If they don't get it done soon, there could be some really big changes in Buffalo.
I don't think change would be a bad thing, though, you know? So last November, we had the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Now, I know a lot of people probably see it being too early to talk about the 2026 World Cup, but it is a huge deal for us because North America is hosting. This means that the United States, alongside Canada and Mexico, automatically qualify. The 2026 World Cup will be different because it is being held across 3 different countries, but it also has the biggest tournament yet. There will be 48 teams instead of the traditional 32. There is also the question of who's going to be the stars. Many of the big names from past World Cups are getting old, so there are questions to whether or not will they actually be able to participate. Cody, what do you think about North America hosting and some of the stars who could be participating or could not?
I love North America hosting. It's huge for the community, for the economy, just big time for the region. But I don't love that NFL stadiums are taking out turf and putting in grass, but they won't do it for their own players. But I digress. It's going to be weird not seeing some of the older players in, but some of the new guys, there's a lot of potential in this bracket.
Absolutely. I am holding on to Neymar Jr., though. He's been my favorite for years, so he better show up.
Michigan football has found themselves in another scandal, with the most recent one being a sign-stealing scandal. This adds another layer of drama to the Wolverine season after the John Harbaugh suspension at the beginning of the season. Michigan currently sits at 8-0 on the season, and they're ranked 2nd in the country. What do you think of the allegations, and do you think this affects their season at all?
You know, I mean, scandals are scandals. We've seen them before. We're going to see them again and again. I don't think it really affects their season at all, but I could be wrong. What do you think?
I'm with you. I don't think it affects their season, but I will say it's a ridiculous thing. Everybody steals signs. It's not something that you're able to stop because every single team does it. If you want to fix the issue, just put radios in the quarterbacks' helmets like the NFL does. At this point, there's no reason not to make that move.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So some of the best commercials come from athletes and branding. Beats by Dre capitalizes on this because they make some really good promotion videos. So this is Haaland's first Beats campaign, and it's putting him in a great light. The promo is titled The King and the Viking, the King being LeBron and the Viking being Haaland. The 2 athletes are at very different parts in their career, but there are still some ideas that translate from one life to another. LeBron is nearing the end of his career, even though he wants to play with his sons, while Haaland is getting started. The framing shows the challenges that each athlete goes through, and it gives us a taste of what it means to be the best. Cody, what does this tell you about Beats, Haaland, and LeBron?
Beats does another great job at growing through their influencer marketing. It's inspiring. It's great to see these athletes that you cheer for do stuff like this off the court. And as you said, I like that you mentioned it. They're both being told that they can't do it, whatever it is for them, and it's very different for both of them. So there's a cool correlation there. I like it.
Oh yeah, it was well done. You know, I'm a fan of all the Beats commercials, especially LeBron. He does a good job.
Absolutely. The Rangers just beat the Astros in 7 games to move on to the World Series. Every game of that series was won on the road. What did you think of the Rangers versus Astros series? And do you think the Rangers are able to bring the title home, or do you think they lose to the Diamondbacks or Phillies? We find out who that is tonight.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the series was good, but I definitely want the Phillies to take it home. We heard it a little bit earlier. They're a good pick, and it's just, why not? You know, why can't they do it this year? Who do you have?
I like the Rangers a lot personally. They have some of the best batters in baseball, and Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, 2 players that were picked up by the Rangers in the last 2 years. Adolis Garcia has 39 home runs on the season. Jordan Montgomery has been phenomenal in the playoffs. Max Scherzer is back. Nathan Eovaldi's winning games. I like this Rangers team a lot.
All right, I'll let you handle baseball and I'll handle the boxing and the UFC. So we all love big names going against big names, but is it getting to a point where the crossover fights are unfulfilling? I'll be honest, I can't remember a time where they were fulfilling, but a big crossover fight is happening. It is Fury versus Ngannou. Both men are great fighters and have so much skill, but this fight is not necessarily good. Fury has been ducking fights with anyone worthwhile and asking entirely way too much for the fights that are in the works. Fury should take this, okay? He should win, but I'm hoping Francis will catch him. December could be a really big month for boxing, especially in terms of Fury fights. As of right now, it looks like we could see a Wilder Fury 4 if they both win, and then Francis has the opportunity to mess up Tyson's career. Whatever the outcome is for this fight, Fury definitely has to shed some weight.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think Fury wins this fight. Ngannou has hands. He has 12 KO TKOs in his UFC career, but Fury wins. At this point, if you're going to retire, retire. If not, I'd like to see someone like Alexander Usyk or someone like that step up. The NBA regular season has begun. This season in the NBA brings some brand new looks with Damian Lillard in a Bucks jersey, Bradley Beal in a Suns jersey, and Chris Paul in a Warriors jersey. We also get to see high-profile rookies such as Victor Wembanyama, Chet Holmgren, Scoot Henderson, and Brandon Miller. Paula, who is your strongest team in the NBA this season?
We've heard it before and we're going to hear it again. Honestly, I think the Lakers have a really good chance. They have a really deep lineup, so why not take it all the way to the top? I think they should have gone further in the past couple of years, so I have the Lakers.
I'm back in on the Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum is in his prime. We're going to see the best basketball of his career over the next couple of years. Jaylen Brown, it feels like he's almost becoming underrated this offseason with the left dribble kind of thing. I think he's fine. We forget that the guy is averaging 25 points per game over the last 3 seasons. The Drew Holiday move is a winning move. I liked to see that. They have a bit of an obstacle with Porzingis being their best big man, but I really, really like this team, and I think that their offense is built to be elite.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then we have one final topic. It was the big thing from this weekend. I don't care if it was baseball, I don't care if it was football, it was UFC 294. Cody, you want to run us through it, or you want me to?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say we saw a couple of huge stars get big. They're going to get bigger and bigger fights. One, Kamaru Usman, he proved that he's not a washed-up fighter. He can still fight, but Chimaev got another nice win under his belt. I think he deserves a title shot against Sean Strickland, even no matter what Strickland says. He deserves that fight. And then Islam Makhachev most likely gets a matchup against Charles Oliveira that we didn't get to see this time because of the injury. I think he wins when that comes. He continuously shows improvements. That head kick against Alexander Volkanovski was perfect. I think Islam Makhachev is the best pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC right now. Do you agree?
I mean, yeah, he currently has that title, but honestly, I was still surprised that Usman went the whole way. I didn't have it going. I didn't have either fight going that far. So Islam definitely, he got that one quicker than I thought he would.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the A Game. Make sure to follow at AppTV Insta on Instagram.
So we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next week.